Hello, I'm Joanne Char, and in these difficult times we decided that Arts on Grand still needed work on the wall, artwork in the gallery, and so I said, well, we might as well have it off the walls from H. and Joanne Char's house. So our house looks not as empty as you would assume, because there's still a lot there, but there was enough to bring here to share original artwork done by former exhibitors at Arts on Grand, some African things, some family pieces, and we just had a lot of fun putting this exhibit together from our walls. And we bought a lot of these types of works. This is from Cameroon, and it's acrylic on cloth. And the figures are very typical, and we have this done on cards. We have other ones of this kind of thing on cloth. And this one came nicely framed. Most of the time they just came and I rolled them up and brought them back to the States. But the only organization of this exhibit is really actually from the walls and where I walked in and said, oh, I think that'll look nice there. So we jump from Cameroon, Africa, to Roskilde, Denmark. Now, my sister Donna and I were there as tourists, and this activity of rowing these old Viking boats takes place in a living history event, and they use the old Viking sail, and that's what this is, the sail to sail out into the bay. Then they take down the sail, and the tourists then row back to the harbor. So Donna was taking pictures of that, and then she has a watercolor class, so she chose that photograph to make a painting. So just as crazy of jumping from Denmark, oh, we're going to jump back into Africa. And this is a batik, and lots of these kinds of batiks are done on hand-woven cotton cloth. And this is different from the Asian batiks, which are much more often done on silk. So it's a totally different effect. And this guy has got his donkey, and what he's carrying is a hoe. Now that may not look like a hoe to people from Iowa, but you have not dug into the deep, hard iron soil of Africa. And it needs a short-handled hoe, all the strength you have in your back, and a very sharp, stiff, heavy piece of steel or iron to hoe your ground. And you're not in a hurry because you don't have 180 acres. so you don't have that kind of thing. You maybe have a plot that's 1 or 2 hectares. But after we've been to Africa, we have to come back to Iowa, and we have to come back to the Clay County Fair. And this is very fun because Barb McGee is known for paintings of horses and cows and people. In fact, I think sometimes half the town of Peterson has been painted by Barb McGee. Well, this was done at the Clay County Fair. She was painting every day, and she was working on a calf at a cattle feeding bunk. And she decided one day, I'm done with that for the day. I will paint something else. And so she painted poppies. And at the end of the day, I asked her what she was going to do with it, and she said, well, I'm just going to throw it away. I said, oh, no. And so I smuggled it out of the Clay County Fair art barn and hung it on my wall in Spencer. This is a tribute to my grandfather, Christian Heinrich Felix Dierkup. And my grandfather was born and raised in Denmark, and he came to the United States as a young man. And he had been at the Art Institute in Copenhagen, Denmark, when he was going to have to be drafted into the Prussian army. And because they had lived in southern Denmark, so his record's connected to southern Denmark. He did not want to go to war. His own father had gone as an 18-year-old, and it had left a very big mark on the family. So this is a pencil sketch that he did as an exercise in perspective. We don't have many of his works, because when he came to Spencer, he had 10 children, too many children to spend his time sitting on the banks of the Little Sioux River painting. He had to paint houses to pay the bills. But it's still fun. So we go from Spencer, but actually this was done in Denmark. We go from Spencer, and this is a tapestry of the kings of Dahomey, Benin. And this one H bought when he was a Peace Corps volunteer in 1969 in Benin. It was called Dahomey, then it was called Benin, and then it was called Dahomey, and now it's back to Benin. And these are the stories of kings, and the kings of the king. This bull stands for the king who survived many assassination attempts. Oh no, this one, excuse me, wrong bull. Sorry, bull. This one. And he survived assassination attempts, and so the folklore of the time was that the man was harder to kill than putting a cloth on a bull. The ship, of course, that guy was king at the time of the invasion of the colonialists into West Africa. So that's why his symbol is a ship. And so they're all very fun, applique on cloth. It has stood the test of time. That was quite a few years ago. But we like it, and it hangs in our house. Oh, this mask. This mask, back in the days before we worried about germs, I have to say, but I am going to put it on. I used to take it to schools and put it on little kids, and I would find a little bashful kid in the crowd. You know, this is like 7, 8-year-olds. And I'd say, will you help me? And they'd look at me kind of funny. I'd say, come here. And I'd put this mask on the kids, and I would say to them, okay, now move your head a little to the right and move your head a little to the left. And pretty soon this child is just totally animated because there is magic in masks. We like it very much. We did not buy this mask. It was given to us by a fellow Peace Corps volunteer who was traveling in Africa and no longer could take it in his luggage. I've never tried to find him. Maybe I should. Say, your mask is in Spencer, Iowa. No, I think we'll keep it. Now, this is from Zaire, and many local artists would come along, and they would do pen and ink drawings. And I bought maybe 6 or 10 of these from different artists at the time. Don't know their names. In some cases, they're written in the corner, and you can't read it, or at least I can't. But we were Peace Corps volunteers in Zaire, so it was very nice to buy flat things. So we did not have to have a problem of carrying them away. And family paintings on our wall wouldn't be complete without artwork by William Char, my son. I have no apologies for being proud enough to put his work on the wall. And William wrote this crazy comic book when he was at the Minneapolis College of Art and Design. And it's about this guy right here. He's Iron Man, but he's always in water. And all I can think of when I think of this thing is, but William, in a real world, he would rust. But it's a cartoon world, so it's okay. We jump from MCAD to Madagascar. This guy, Pierrot Min, was a photographer in Madagascar, in Finneran-Sous, where we lived from 94 to 98. And Pierrot liked to take pictures of Malagasy people doing Malagasy things instead of standing all in a line things. So this person is out in the rice paddies carrying a child on his back. And we have some wonderful photographs that he sold us and then some that he gave us when we left Madagascar. He's had exhibits in art galleries in Paris, because Pierrot is partly Malagasy and partly French. Very talented. And I like them because they're black and white. And for me, that, like the whole thing of the reflection there is so much, to me, it's so much better done in black and white than it would be if it were in color. More fancy ladies from Cameroon, and all carrying things on their heads, sticks and baskets. And I would buy these, this guy, I think it's Bangs, And he came to the house, and these guys would come to the house, and I would buy their work. Just fun because it shows the colorful patterns of cloth that they used for women's things. And this is a plein air painting done by my friend Terry Firkins. We started school together in kindergarten and have known each other for years. And Terry did a series of plein air paintings over the years over at Lost Island and on the Dale Langner farms. So there's more than one of those in this exhibit. After we finished Peace Corps in 1976, we went and flew to Nairobi, and then we flew to Rome. And we went to the museums in Rome and then the museums in Florence. And the Pitti Palace in Florence has all sorts of wonderful mosaic tile things, huge tables, just gorgeous. So I used some of my Peace Corps money and bought this cute little vase. And that's stone, it's stone inlay, very fine work. And from 1976. And this is from probably 2008. This is a digital design done by Anthony Vodraska and Anita Gilbert. Anita probably painted a background. And they probably, in some cases, they actually had that mushroom. There's another one that has a stone circle that doesn't exist, but except in Anthony's creation. And this is a dried up mum. And so they took some pictures and they superimposed them and they did these wonderful digital works. And when they got ready to leave Spencer, they had a whole bunch of work left in their house, pottery and digital work. And once again, I purloined a lot of them. They would like this piece right here. And so this Anthony and Anita piece has herons flying, or it might also be cranes. And that circle there, that's part of the thing that doesn't exist. That originally, there's another one with a stone one that I wanted to see that disc. And Anthony said, it doesn't exist. I was disappointed. However, the effect is wonderful, I think. Now, the next painting is a departure for Terry Firkins. Terry started now doing abstract things, and this painting, I call it Cosmos, and Terry had a name for it, but I don't remember what it was. And I sometimes see Neil Tyson DeGrasse doing things and showing things on Geographic Channel, and they'll put a picture of outer space, and that's what I think it looks like. I wrote 100 haikus to get this painting. That was my assignment, and I did it. This is an example of another person who had an exhibit at Arts on Grand. Her name is Elizabeth Fleur, and she's from Omaha, Nebraska. And she was very involved in paper, painting it, tinting it, tie-dyeing it, all kinds of things. And so it is strips of paper that then she has rearranged in this multimedia thing. And I haven't got this framed yet. But this is Joanne Alberta, and I absolutely love her quilting techniques on things. And she's been part of our artisan road trip more than once, and she had a whole exhibit here once. And this butterfly, that probably doesn't do so well with that shiny stuff, but I like it, a quilted butterfly. Oh goodness, we have to go from Sioux Center, Iowa, back to Madagascar. And the Malagasy women are wonderful needle workers, and they do gorgeous embroidery things. And there are also all kinds of orchids and all kinds of flowers in Madagascar. So this was done by a local woman. I don't know her name. I bought 2 of them, and they hang in my bedroom, and I like them. And the next crazy thing is a multimedia piece done by Holly Kellogg. Now, Holly Kellogg used to be the curator here at Arts on Grand some years ago. She now lives in Ames. And Holly was always collecting silly stuff. And of course, what that got me doing was collecting silly stuff for Holly. And so when she was going to be leaving Spencer and had her last show here, I had to buy something from the show to be able to remember the crazy creativity of Holly Kellogg. It's not easy being green. That's what my son said to me after he had this painting on the wall at Arts on Grand. I said, William, why did you paint it green? Well, Mom, it's not easy being green. And William was an artist and a fantasy lover and a cartoonist and a dramatist. He was in drama, he was in the choir, and sometimes he felt apart from his classmates. The other reason he felt apart is that 4 of his formative years he spent in Madagascar. And so lots of kids didn't understand the cultural awareness that William had of the world. And once again, I had to buy something from an exhibit. And a friend, this is a Danielle Klaus. I don't know if you can see, but right here, there are windmills. And that's why I bought the painting. And I, for years, did not understand Danielle's work. I liked it, but I didn't understand it. And my first flight to Denmark, we were coming back in middle summer, and we're flying and landing in Minneapolis. And oh my goodness, I looked down at the earth from that perspective, and I said, oh my goodness, that's a Danielle Klaus painting right there. And at the time, I didn't know that her husband was a pilot. So she has been able to look at the world from that angle. I always thought she was trying to look at it from the viewpoint of a mouse or something, you know, from down low. Turns out it's up high. Once again, another one, both of these from exhibits. This one was done by Wendell Arneson. It's a collage. It has a photograph. It has some ink work. He was a professor at St. Olaf College in Northville, Minnesota. And he also was involved with his own ancestry of Scandinavian ancestry. And so that's part of what that artwork is about. And I just liked the look on that lady's face. That's why I bought it. People in Spencer know Pat Johnson as a watercolorist, and she also is an alcohol ink artist. And I don't know what she intended when she did this, but I have a stream with rocks and trees and sunlight bursting down, and I just think that's a wonderful way. And when you see her do alcohol ink, you would say, my gosh, how could she have planned that kind of stuff? But she's good at what she does. I know we aren't supposed to have anything but on the wall. That's what H told me. And I said, well, some things from the floor are going. And this, believe it or not, is a gourd. It is a gourd, a painted gourd. Okay, there's a nice bull. And a great egret, who would normally not have blue wings. And probably a malaria mosquito. And a fisherman. And it comes from Botswana. And when Anita Gilbert was leaving, she did not want to take this. They were moving to a smaller place than they had out here west of town, and so she gave it to me. And this funny thing is a reliquary statue from Burkina Faso, and we bought it for my mother-in-law, Alice Char, just because we thought it was weird and wonderful. It has all kinds of significance to it about what it is, but we only know a little bit about it and we don't care, we just like it. That's the nice thing about art. You can analyze it all you want and take all kinds of things and make them work to that piece of art, but the art still stands on its own for whatever it is when the artist created it. And in some cases, it even ends up something that the artist wasn't intending to create. So there's that miracle that's part of why I really like art. William was supposed to do bits and pieces things at MCAD. So there's a trombone in there and a fireman's hat, and I don't know, we just like it because it's colorful, and for me, I think it's positive, so it's just fun. And next to William, of course, we go back to Africa. And this little statue that hangs on the wall in the dining room, it doesn't have the full effect because you see it would have raffia trailers on it too. And it would be part of a dance, and it would actually be on the forehead of the dancer, not on the face of the dancer. So you would see it with where that hole is, there would be all kinds of raffia straw hanging out there, and probably cloth stapled on the inside of it down to shield the dancer from any identification. And they had lots of dances like this in Burkina Faso before the rainy season. And you would go to these neighborhoods, they would just sort of be spontaneous dances. And these guys in these full costumes will be doing flips and twists and turns and somersaults and craziness all going on under the guise of the mask. And the idea was that nobody would know who it was. This watercolor here is a mystery to me. I think it is a watercolor done by Pat Johnson in her days in Florida. That's a bird of paradise, and I've always liked birds of paradise, and so, but it's a more light and airy kind of piece that she did. And the next is another Terry Firkins, and I like this particular one that Terry did because I want to be on that path. I don't want to be driving the tractor along there. I just want to be walking along there and looking around, and so that's why I like it. You'd had to been at Arts on Grand back in the 90s. No, maybe the 80s. This is a crochet work, a small piece of crochet work done by Tim Aaron McElrath. And McElrath was an art teacher at Ames at the Iowa State University. And I first met him when he did an exhibit here of willow installations. They were the weirdest things. And they were bent willow, all tied up, all crocheted together. And one of them had soldiers in it. One of them had cowboys and Indians. One of them had Barbie doll parts. They were bizarre. And my son William at that time was young enough that he just spent his whole time in the gallery with his mouth hung open, looking at these things in wonder. So we never did understand them, but they were amazing. Kind of weird, but amazing. One of my favorite African animals is a rhinoceros. And so William, I said one time, Christmas time, I said, William, you know what you could do for me for Christmas? You could do me a pencil drawing of a rhinoceros. And so he did. And we bought the frame, bought a few of those kinds of frames in Africa with cowrie shells and beads. So that's a drawing of a rhinoceros by William Char. We just travel so much we make ourselves dizzy. But this is a watercolor by Anita Badke-Plucker. Anita has worked at Arts on Grand as the art person and the curator person. And then she taught junior high in Spencer. She's from Terrell. She now has a studio in Terrell. And I like this little watercolor because it had some of Katie's skies, which are wonderful. And then it just has the landscape around this area. And the area between here and Lost Island is just fun. I don't know if people remember, but we had a wonderful exhibit of the artwork of Haiti. And this was on loan from the Figgy in Davenport, because they have, for some reason, because they have a patron who went back and forth from Haiti back in the 40s, 50s, and brought back a whole lot of art and endowed it to the Figgy. And so this little guy, Bossou, once again, one of those kind of mask activities. So he's a bull, all done with sequins. And Lee Rainbooth, who also had art here, now works in an art studio in Haiti, an art co-op in Haiti. And a few years ago, he had some done with sequins like that. One year, I had somebody quit, call in and say they could not do their exhibit. It was right at Christmas time. I thought, what in the world am I going to do? Well, someone said, well, maybe you should call Julie Hamilton. And who's Julie Hamilton? Well, she had a farm south of Peterson, and she did these wonderful barn photographs. She took barn photographs all over the Midwest. And her place was called On Willow Pond. And she took these photographs, and then she had them printed, then she laminated them to pieces of barn wood. And she also sold funny kinds of antique things, or old things, or crummy things, like this drawer. And I thought at the time, well, wouldn't that be a fun way to display those photographs? So it sits in the house along the wall. This is a painting by Will Thompson. And when I was a kid, I would go see my grandparents down in Moorhead, Iowa, and Bill Thompson was the Lutheran pastor at their church. And so he gave this painting to my grandmother, Bessie Lindgren, when he resigned the church and went to be the head of the art department at Dana College in Blair, Nebraska. Bill Thompson was influential in making artworks that connected Neihart, who's a Nebraska poet and philosopher, and Black Elk did some things. There's a visual place. You go up a hill, and it's all created talking about all the four directions in Indian philosophy. Well, Bill Thompson is the person who created the art for that. He also did stained glass windows in the chapel at Blair. And then, of course, Blair College had to go out of business, and I don't know exactly what has happened to those wonderful pieces. It seems like they could still use the chapel, but I do not know. But it's kind of cool. And he was a very nice guy. He was and he liked my grandparents. And so this land, this is a picture of the Luss Hills area, because Moorhead, Iowa is in the area of the Luss Hills. So this is a road that when Pastor Thompson painted this in the 50s, it was still a dirt road, but that's a blacktop road now. Still cool. So once more, I couldn't resist some little guys and some little things that aren't on the wall. This is a Kora Player. It's all wood. It's probably teak. Comes from Burkina Faso. So I bought wooden things. It probably actually might have come from Mali, because Mali across the border was very famous for Kora Players. And then the guy with the shepherd with his water teapot, he also came from Burkina Faso. And there was an artist, and that's made of bronze. There was a bronze artist or brass artist in Burkina that whenever he got hard up, he came with some statues and a story. And I bought most of them for the story. The guy, his wife is in the hospital, he can't afford the medicine, his other child is sick at home, and things are just going wrong. It could be a true story, because in Africa, that's the problem. If you go to the hospital, then you've got to have some money. You've got to have cash money, you can't trade. So I think I bought 10 bronzes from this guy. So we had a relationship, that's all I can say. And this we don't know the artist of this. We don't even know the true history of it, other than it is a bride price. In Zaire, this was from the 40s, maybe the 30s, probably 40s, a guy by the name of Dr. Johnson, who was a Swede. I think he had actually been born in Sweden, but he was with the Swedish Covenant Church and was a missionary in Zaire where we lived. And they would exchange this in the very ceremony of wedding to signify the 20 head of cattle, or the 16 chickens, or the 2 hogs. It was the exchange that was the public agreement that the family had agreed to pay, that the groom's family had agreed to pay for this wife. So it was a dowry. And it's made of iron, and it's kind of rusty, but we've never seen another one. And not even at the University of Iowa, which has a large collection of African things because of a former Peace Corps volunteer who set it up at the university. And the other art that I couldn't put on the wall, I'm wearing. And it is a medallion done by Perry Paulson, who is a wood turner here in Spencer. And I bought a lilac, an unknown, and a box elder bug. And I looked for my box elder one today because that wood is so gorgeous. And people dislike that tree and they dislike the bugs, but slices of that are absolutely gorgeous. And so I'm always proud to wear Perry's artwork. So this is what we've put on the wall for Arts on Grand, and we hope that if you want to put on your mask and come out and come down, and you want to see the art, it's quiet in here. Missy will be glad to talk to you about the art, and Ryan will talk to you about the art, or they'll just let you look at it. And you can wonder now, what else could they have in their house that would still have the things on the wall? But we do. But most of the other things that are on the walls are not originals, so I was trying to get originals to put here. But it's very fun, and this is a difficult time, and if we can cooperate with each other and share with each other, we end up with a few blessings out of this very difficult, terrible time.